Hey everyone, bonsoir tout le monde, and it is your girl Sis with the Locks back at it again with another commentary. And today I will be doing my commentary on this article called The African American Ministers as a Source of Help for Serious Person in Crisis, Bridge or Barrier to Mental Health Care. And especially what's going on in the world today, I thought this would be a perfect topic because I know for me personally, I'm like going through a lot mentally, as we see. First we had the whole pandemic. It's still here. People don't talk about it as much. And now we seeing, pretty much waves of protests. We're seeing the Black Lives Matter movement. And then again, people are talking about upcoming presidential elections. People are talking about their local and city elections. Again, the topic of police brutality. It is so much, and it can take a toll on your mind. At least for me, it is. I had to step away from social media, give myself a time just to really be to myself. Like literally, I don't go into social media like within 1 hour of me going to bed. I used to always look at my social media pages once I wake up, but at least now I'm doing my best to at least wait 2 hours from the time I wake up to look at it, because I thought because I'm not a very big social media person, but due to this whole pandemic, I started going to social media because I was like, I need an outlet. Like, I literally just created my Twitter not too long ago, but now I see how it's affecting me, and it's a lot, and I know the feeling of wanting to be involved and stay up to date, which I get it. I really do get it, but also self-care is important, mental care is important, so it's really important to really step back and just keep your mind off of that. When I really started to feel pressure, when I really started to feel so much and I can't handle it, I go straight on Netflix and I'm watching all sort of cartoons. I try not to watch documentaries. It sounds weird, but I try not to watch anything with real people. I stay watching cartoon shows, animated films. I just watched Incredibles 2. What is it? Sunny with a Cloud of Chance Meatballs, something like that. The Croons. I just watched Princess and the Frog, all animation, because I'm really just trying my best to stay away from that. So, that was a little tangent, but I just want to make sure that everyone is okay. Please, if there are resources around you, please reach out to them. Please talk to somebody, because us being in quarantine is not helping the situation. I know there are some cities who are slowly doing phases of opening back up. Some cities are not. I'm in Florida, and to be honest, you would never think a pandemic was going on, because people are just raving about going about their business. Just Friday, the bars and the strip club just opened up, and people came in waves, there were beehives, they swarmed in. But that's crazy. But I just want to make sure you guys are okay, and I know you guys. It's history is really unraveling before our eyes. But honestly, please take time away from social media if you can, or at least before you go to sleep, try to log off your social media within 30 minutes or an hour before you go to sleep. That's just my personal recommendation, because I just don't want to have that weighing on my mind, weighing on my spirit right before I go to sleep. I try to watch something that's completely opposite from that. Watching watch Food Network. I like to watch YouTube videos about food, or like I said earlier, go on Netflix or whatever streaming services you have and try to watch animations, and just honestly just continue to do self-care, especially right now, and especially relating with everything going on. I really thought this article will go hand in hand about mental health, and also how black men, because obviously it's really the African American history, but how black ministers play a role in health services. And then during this time, I'm like, where's the church? Obviously some church have come out, they done some prayer ceremony, and then some other churches, I don't really see where you are. But then another side of me is that not just churches, but people don't always have to post what they do. You can do your due diligence. You can do your yourself, your service, behind closed doors. You don't always need to post things. So I always give people, churches like benefit of the doubt. Like, they probably are doing stuff, specifically within their community. They're probably not broadcasting it as much. But I just really thought it was a great point, because a coworker of mine was like, this is the time that we really need the church. And in her opinion, she felt like the church was not as present as it, during other situations and stuff. So she's like, what a church? Because from her perspective, she don't see the church. So before I move forward with this article, obviously I want to give some background information to the authors on this article. There was 3 authors who wrote this. So the first author is Dr. Harold W. Neighbors, and he is a professor in health, behavior, and health education at the University of Michigan. He is the assistant director for research on ethnicity, culture, and health. He specializes in racial differences in health and illness behavior. You have Dr. Mark A. Music. He is a professor and director in the Department of Sociology at the University of Texas, Austin. He focuses on the effects of pro-social activities on mental and physical health. And then the last author is Dr. David R. Williams. He is a professor of African American Studies and Sociology at Harvard University. He focuses on social influences on health, such as status, race, socioeconomic status, racism, and health and behavior. So I can't wait to get into it. So we're going to start off with the theme, and this is directly pulled from the article. And they have wrote how this is what they wrote, but they got it from the National Survey of Black Americans, which I'm going to be referring to as NSBA. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but today I'm going to pronounce it NSBA. But NSBA shows that African Americans in distress rely quite heavily on a variety of alternative health resources to compensate for their lack of access to specialty mental health care. So this article, it focuses on 4 research questions, and they address it within an article. And this article, again, like I said with my other article, like this one is very interesting. I will put in the description box. I hope you guys are able to take the time to read it, because obviously I can't talk about every single thing. I'm going to point out stuff that stood out to me, what I can relate to, and obviously put my input in it. And hopefully you guys are able to take a lot from this article. And even you don't have to agree with the things that I said. It can be a learning and intellectual engagement with the Anchor platform. I'm not sure if you leave comments, but obviously I will be uploading this on my YouTube page as well, so you can also put your comments there as well. So the first research question is, what demographic characteristics and psychosocial factors are related to contacting Black clergy? So NSBA, it shows that 68% of adult Blacks belong to a church, and that 92% of members attend church. And this is like, you can go many directions, but when I was first reading this, like, me being a Black woman, growing up in a Black church, like, to me, it was always like, I grew up with the mindset that Black people go to church. Like, Black people is heavily spiritual. And like, in my opinion, like, people know that, like, people are like very aware of that, but within this specific not status, but statistic, obviously this can be debated, because now you're looking at how more like the younger adults, millennials, you're kind of seeing a decrease in Black attendance for a certain age group. That's probably another article I would like to do sometime soon. But I know there's an article I'm pretty sure there's an article out there that shows like the age group of those attending church, who doesn't attend, those who are part of a church, and stuff like that, dealing with religion. But specifically talking about this article, with 92% of the members attend church, and then the 68% of adult Blacks belong to a church. So right here, it creates a very strong, for me, it opened up to the belief that this is where you would see how there's a strong connections of African Americans seeking help from their Black ministers. And it makes sense if you see like a high population of African Americans are going to church, they're going to rely on their ministers and their priests, on their church for services or for any assistance that they may need, whether it be a mental help, something physically, something spiritually, something financially. And obviously in my opinion, I look at the church as I'm going there to be in communion with other people who believe in God, but also seeing church as also a safe place for me to go and to worship, and also to rely on the church for any help that I need, or that my family may need, or someone else who also needs help with anything. But the article, as I continue to read it, it didn't mention how the stigma of being labeled crazy or mentally ill. And when I'm speaking this, I'm speaking, within the Black community from my perspective, because I'm pretty sure there's other people from different backgrounds who have like a negative stigma attached to mental health. I know Black people are not the only ones, but obviously this article is talking about Black people, so we're going to focus on Black people. I know growing up that if you had some sort of, mental illness or something, it was always a negative attachment. Like, oh, you crazy. My parents would sweep it on the rug. You need to pray about it. And that's one thing when you kind of look at the confliction, and it's going to go more in depth about that later, when you look at the confliction of the Black ministers and then the Black ministers and then health service providers. Because when you look at the ministers, they look at it from a theological perspective. So they looking at it, guilt, redemption, sin. Are you praying? Are you reading your scriptures? Your prayer life? How's your worship life? How's your spiritual life? Are you living your life through the flesh? Are you living your life in spirit? Like, what are you doing in your daily activities? Where health service providers, mental health, those who are in the mental health profession, they're looking at it like psychology, like, okay, that your brain may reproduce XYZ, or it's not producing XYZ. I'm not too well educated in the mental health field because I'm not in that field, but they look at it more scientifically. They look at it from a scientific point of view. So that's already another confliction that Black ministers, and you have the health professionals, that they kind of like having a constant battle. And then when you relate it back to the first statistic that I mentioned about how many Black adults attend church and are members of the church, that's that's a high number of those who go to church. And then they're always relying on their Black ministers, and when they go to the Black ministers to seek help, their ministers is coming from a theological point of view, versus and we already know that Black people don't really have access to health services, so many of them don't even know if they have like a certain illness, or they're not sure if it's a certain illness, and if they do feel like they may be suffering from something, they don't want to say that because there's that stigma of being labeled crazy and there's something wrong with you. And another point I want to mention is that because it's coming from a theological point of view, people always, and not everyone, but again from my personal point of view, it's like, just pray about it, ask God, there's nothing wrong with you. That's what I've always heard, and that's what I always thought. So to me, like, somebody was like, if something was like, I don't want to say this in a bad way, but like, if something was suffering from something, I was taught that, they just have to pray about it, that there's something in their past that they're not dealing with, where again, from a scientific perspective, it's like, no, this person really needs psychological treatment, they need help, they need some sort of medication, they need to go through these processes to really help cope with what they have. So, that's from my perspective. That's what I remember. That's what I thought, like, growing up. And then in this article, I also talk about mental health referrals. It discussed how, since many Black people do go to their Black ministers seeking help, and this question, and like, it wasn't answered in this specific research on paper, but it was a question that it was indicating that should be research about how, like, it's hard to say, but like, when people do seek help from Black ministers, how should Black ministers go about it and giving individuals mental health referrals? And in the article, it did discuss how Black ministers do give out referrals, but they tend to give out referrals to other pastors versus giving out referrals to mental health professions. And it did say in the article as well that younger priests, or those who do have a college degree, tend to refer their they tend to refer their church members to mental health professionals versus those who don't have a degree. So that's something else that I thought was really cool. Well, like not cool like that, but I thought that was a very interesting point. The second point they talk about is whether certain types of personal problems increase the likelihood of clergy contact. In the research, it did mention how women are more likely to seek help than men. Those who are dealing with anything financially or financial security are more likely to seek out help from their Black ministers. Those who experience death within a family or close like family connection or a friend, they're more likely to seek help from their Black ministers, which makes sense because usually, in my opinion, when someone experience a death in their family, they tend to go to church. They tend to go to the church that they're connected to, set up their funeral service, making sure they really rely on the church to help with the arrangement. So to me, like, that was like a no-brainer. It definitely made sense. And then you also had the fourth reason is interpersonal, something that they're dealing with, whether it's nervousness, something that they're going on in their personal life that they really need to talk to, and they feel like it's affecting their daily life. So those who are going through something like personally, they're also more likely to seek their Black ministers for help. The third point is the third question is addresses the critical question of whether those who do make contact with ministers are also likely to seek help from some other professional help source. So it was pretty much looking into, well, I kind of touched on it briefly earlier, is when African Americans go to their Black ministers and they seek help, is it like, okay, is that it? Is there like a step two? Okay, you did get your help, from your ministers, but is it also equally important to probably seek out some mental health services as well? So it was really looking into that, because a lot of people, they don't take that initiative to go on to the second point. And there's a lot of like kind of many different arguments, because in the article it was talking about not many Black ministers are, I'm going to have a hard time pronouncing this, but dietitian, but pretty much it's like they can't diagnose everybody. Like, they don't know what certain things is, or if this person's diagnosed with that, or if this person's diagnosed with this. So it's like, it really makes it difficult for the Black ministers on their behalf to refer them to a certain like mental health profession when they don't know what they have. But it also mentioned that Black ministers are also like being in contact with those who have serious mental health that's going on. For example, like bipolar, you have schizophrenia, multiple personality disorders, those who are going through depression. The article was saying that they're pretty sure like Black ministers come in contact with those, just how the mental health professionals are in contact with those people as well who have those mental health. But that would, what I kind of mentioned earlier, that was the issue. Like, the Black ministers, they don't know which is what. They're not in that. Obviously, they didn't go to school for that. Well, some do have a little bit of like. The article also talked about how health educators should look to churches as a setting for educating African American ministers about disorders, again, such as depression, bipolar disorder. You have manic depressive illness, anxiety, phobia, schizophrenia, and etc. And it talks about to the extent that Black clergy are able to identify cases of disorders such as major depression, schizophrenia, or manic depressive illness. The article said, we assume that they should refer such conditions for the appropriate mental health treatment intervention. It may be the case that Black ministers feel unprepared to identify the presence of such disorders. So this is what the article said verbatim. So it's just like, even though they are being in contact with individuals with these disorders, it's like they do not have the necessary skills. They did not go to school and they may not feel 100% comfortable telling this person, like, okay, I feel like you have XYZ, so you need to go XYZ. It's like, to them, and this is my opinion, it's like, is it in their place to do that? But then, this is my opinion. I keep saying it's my opinion, but it's just like, to me, it's like, if I see someone that I know needs mental health, mental health, I may not be able to point out what exactly they're suffering from. But again, there's nothing wrong just giving them general information about, contact information, or somewhere they can go to seek help and to seek treatment, and obviously take it from there. Because for me, like, obviously I'm not too educated in this field, so I wouldn't know like where to go or what number. But I feel like I go on Google, look something up and be like, hey, let's just try the first step, and let's try to find someone who can at least go through, the testing to see what you're going through. And then from there, you can take it on to the next step and know specifically what's going on. So, the specific treatment and the specific person that the specific doctor that you can talk to get help, to get treatment, whatever that needs to get done. The fourth point is the specific types of help offered by ministers and whether help seekers are satisfied with the help offered by Black clergy. It mentioned how, specifically in regards to Black ministers, how that they do not only offer services exclusively spiritual. And in the article, it talks about, in some cases, Black ministers, they reported that they did help people financially as well who needed some sort of monetary assistance. So an article just describing how Black ministers also engage in assistance of financial assistance, and beyond just spiritual. They try to help people, again, spiritually, physically, mentally to a certain extent, and also if they need help in the financial aspects as well. And then the second part of the fourth statement is when it says whether help seekers are satisfied with the help offered by Black clergy. Some health professions, they will see like it could be, I want to say, a detriment, but some may see it, and it's my opinion, some may see it as like a barrier, because they're seeing how African Americans, they're not going directly to mental health services. Instead, they're relying on their ministers. So that can kind of not help out the specific African American who's trying to get help, because it's like there's only so much that the minister can do on your behalf. You may need to get some more of like a scientific answer, or go through treatment to really understand what's going on. But then another point to that, again, being involved religiously, being involved in church, some people feel like, oh, this can only be solved through God, if I pray. Some people don't really feel like going to like a doctor or having, quote unquote, a person help me. This is something that God has the ability and has the power to do. So a lot of people kind of go through that dilemma, like, well, I have faith in God, He's going to carry me. And other people feel like, it's good to have faith in God, but it's also okay to like seek help if you go to a certain like mental health facility, or if you seek help through mental services that they provide, or you speak with someone in a specific profession. So it's a lot of like back and forth. In my opinion, like the question being if Black ministers are serving as a barrier or a bridge for mental health services, to me, I don't think that's a yes or no question. I don't think I can answer yes or say a no, because there's so many aspects, there's so many different perspectives and arguments that can be made. I just kind of feel like it depends on the situation, it depends on what's going on, the circumstances that's going around it. So I personally feel like I wouldn't even feel comfortable saying yes or no, because Black ministers can also serve as a bridge to mental health care, because mental health care professionals, they know specifically in the Black community that Black people are seeking help from Black ministers and going to them. So it's in the best advantage, in my opinion, that mental health professionals go to the Black ministers and and create some sort of like connection or network and really partner with them in order for them to create an outreach to their church and to the members of their church, to really get them engaged in training and identifying certain issues, and really kind of grown their network from the mental health care providers. Because y'all know, like, to me, it's like, y'all know Black people are really looking up to and are really going to Black ministers. It really, in my opinion, it makes sense to partner up with them. It's like, why not? But then again, I kind of touched on it earlier, mental health, there are going to be some mental health professionals who feel like, we are trained on, doing this and obviously condoning tests and knowing sort of treatment that's going to help these individuals more than what the Black ministers are trained to do. But that's also, in my opinion, is not being culturally sensitive, because Black people have a high rate, and again, that can be debatable, with high rate of going to church. So they're going to rely more on your Black ministers. So you might as well just go ahead and partner up with the Black ministers. To me, that just makes sense. So I don't ever see me answering a yes or no. Again, they can come together and work out some partnership. It's honestly, in my opinion, it's about them coming together and creating some sort of network, some sort of a partnership to have a greater outreach of African Americans. So did you like what I had to say? Oh, okay, great. So go ahead and go over to my Anchor podcast to listen to the rest of it. And don't worry, you don't need an account to listen to it. And if you don't have Anchor, that's fine, because it's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Castbox, Google Podcasts, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, and Stitcher. So I'll see you over there. Bye.